Okay, Howard. If I had tinfoil, I'd make a hat out of it for this next question. The number of people who thought the NBA put their thumb on the draft lottery scale for the Dallas Mavericks to get Cooper Flagg with their 1% chance, just under the 2% milk, right? That they go 1.8% to Cooper Flagg. I've lost track on the number of people who say, well, the NBA watched Nico Harrison fumble the bag, and at least they had him set up the Lakers for post-LeBron. Now let's do him a favor and send Cooper Flagg there. I've lost track on the number of people who say that. And you, sir, are an inveterate NBA man. Has covered this league and association forever and a day. I'll give you the floor on this subject matter. Howard?
Rich, if we were texting right now, I would wear out my finger on the eye roll emoji. It would just go over and over and over and over again for pages and pages, and you would finally be like, Howard, please stop. Enough. I get it. My eyes are going to roll so far, they're going to go into the back of my head. Listen, I get it. But no, this is not a conspiracy. The lottery is not rigged. I'm not in Chicago. I'm home in Brooklyn, but I've been in that room before, the lottery room, the actual drawing room where the ping pong ball machine is. And the folks from Ernst & Young, the worldwide, very respected firm of Ernst & Young, presides over this whole thing. There are, I don't know, a couple dozen people in the room. You've got the representatives of every team that's in the lottery. You've got a bunch of us from the media who are there as the neutral observers. You've got other various NBA officials and people from NBA security. You can watch this whole thing unfold, and they now put it online. I think it's on YouTube or maybe on the NBA's website, where you can go and look, and you can see this for yourself, how this goes. It is a complex process. It is a detailed process. There are all kinds of safeguards built into the process. And when I've heard people say, well, if you were in the room and you knew something happened and, nobody would be able to say anything because the media would lose their credentials or whatever. For this to be a conspiracy that we could all witness in the room and then all keep silent, that would require, among other things, among the many, many holes in this whole stupid conspiracy theory, that would require the complicity of all the teams that lost the lottery. Why would they do that? Why would the other 13 teams that were in the lottery be like, yeah, it's okay. Let the Mavericks have it. They made a stupid trade. Let's give them the best pick in the draft. Why would they be complicit in that? Now, if you want to say it's somehow rigged because the lottery balls, the ping pong balls are somehow weighted or this or that, there's some way of fixing the whole draw. Okay, fine. You have accused a massive number of people of I don't even know how many felonies and fraudulence perpetrated on the public, not to mention perpetrated on members of their own organization, perpetrated on other NBA franchises. It doesn't make any sense. I don't think it's possible. I don't think it happens. I hate that I've had to even expend this much time saying why it was not the case.
Howard, I hear you. Because, I hear all the time how the NFL is fixed, it's rigged, and my answer is like that means the other franchises in the league are complicit to say, sure, let's make sure the Chiefs continue to win because the league loves Taylor Swift going to these games because it brings in a whole new fan base and a lot more revenue. It's absurd. I just wanted to give that moment to you to explain, how it all works. That said, there is something off about this draft lottery where the three teams with the three worst records have the same chance of getting the first overall pick and then winding up, since they've changed this way of doing things because teams and franchises in the association could not be trusted to not tank en masse in the final throes of the regular season, that there's something off here that a team like the Wizards picks sixth and a team like the Jazz picks fifth and the Hornets fourth. I mean, the teams with the worst records in the NBA aren't even choosing in the top three. I mean, something's got to go. Something's got to be done about at least the way they go about the setup, Howard, don't you think? Or no?
Rich, 10 years ago, we were having, not necessarily literally you and me having, but we, right, the collective,
right,
we were having this discussion in the opposite direction, which is teams are tanking too much. The process era Sixers did their thing, and we've got to do something about teams being able to manipulate the system and get a top three pick. And the NBA responded by reforming, quote unquote, reforming the lottery. And in doing so, gave the teams with the 3 worst records an equal weight or equal chance of getting number 1, different chances of getting 2 and 3. And so this has worked. What the NBA did to reform the lottery several years ago has worked. The whole point was to dissuade teams from doing what the Jazz and the Wizards did this season and what some other teams did as well. But those were the 2 most egregious. The whole point was to say, don't try losing intentionally just because you're going to try to game the system. You can't game the system anymore. You'll have a better shot than most teams at the number 1 pick, but not 25% anymore if you had the worst record. Now it's only 14%. And that's supposed to dissuade teams. And the lottery results in the last several years since reform have shown over and over that being a bottom 3 team does not guarantee you a top 3 pick. And a lot of teams have tried this gambit anyway and lost in the same way that the Wizards and Jazz lost out last night. That's the system working. It's not the system being broken. That's the system conveying that you cannot manipulate this thing. And if you try, all right, you know what? You might get the number 1 pick, San Antonio, or you might finish 5th or 6th, Washington and Utah. So this is the system working. And I don't know, I get that people now, especially if you're a fan of the teams that really thought they were going to be at the top of the board, are suddenly wringing their hands going, well, now what do we do? I get that frustration, but we have to decide what we actually want out of this. Do we want a system that rewards intentional losing, or do you want a system that has enough volatility where you can't manipulate it?
Well, I mean, the crazy thing is now people in Miami are saying they should have not made the play-in tournament because had they not played out of that tournament to just get wiped off the face of the earth in the first round, they would have had the slot the Mavericks had.
Yeah.
And assuming the ping pong balls bounced in the same way, Cooper Flagg would be going to South Florida right now. And that's what they're talking about in Miami, Howard. You know, so now now we might get to the point of like, what's the point of making the play-in tournament to play out of it only to get smoked in the first round? You know, like that's part of the conversation today.
Yeah, and it's part of the reason why the NBA has been very careful in the way that they've devised the lottery odds and the system. So when they were discussing this, 10 years ago, one of the things, people go back to like, well, why don't we just go back to the way the lottery was at the very beginning, where every non-playoff team has equal odds of winning it all. But then the problem is exactly what you're just describing, Rich, where if you're on the fence about making the playoffs or the play-in versus just, letting go of the rope and being a lottery team, even as the 13th or 14th team in the lottery, if it's equally weighted throughout, you might as well say, I'm better off in the lottery. Why do I want to go be cannon fodder as an 8th seed? I'll just opt out of the playoffs, and I'll have just as good of a chance of winning the lottery as the 14th team as the 1 team. So that's why they haven't gone back to that, and that's why I don't think they ever would go back to that. But what's interesting is, as you point out, Miami can sit there now looking at exactly what unfolded and knowing where they would have been if they had just lost in the play-in and not made the playoffs. It's just like there's always going to be a cutoff point. There's always going to be some team that had to make a decision, and at least in this case, in real time, Miami could not have known that the team with one of the lowest chances of getting the number 1 pick was going to get it, right? So there's still no incentive to decide to be a lottery team instead of a playoff team if you're on the borderline in, early April. So again, I think this is the system working. It just, sucks if you're the Miami Heat or Miami Heat fan. I mean, it's the basketball gods can be cruel, although not so much in Dallas right now.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show live weekdays from 12 to 3 p.m. Eastern on Roku Sports Channel in the U.S.